Welcome. Today we're diving into digital advertising, when to do it, how to do it right, and what to expect when you start putting real dollars behind your marketing. My guest is Wyatt Moss, founder of Moss Digital Strategies. Wyatt, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be joining you today.
Yeah, so maybe before we kind of dive into the meat and potatoes here, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background. It's interesting. You've been in marketing for quite some time now.
I founded Moss Digital Strategies in 2016 with the goal of helping small and medium-sized businesses grow their revenue and customer bases online, primarily through Google and Meta ads. We work with a lot of wide range of customers, both pet care and beyond. Prior to this, I worked at Google for 3 years as an account manager, so kind of got the inside view on how things work there. And after a few years, was ready to go off on my own, and then 9.5 years later, still going strong.
Love it. Love it. I mean, Google Ad Manager, that's pretty great experience to do what you're doing. So you definitely have a nice background there. What makes sense for a pet care business to do online advertising? When does it make sense, I should say?
Really, as soon as you as a pet care business feel good about your website and your ability to convert traffic that comes to the website into customers and confident in your operations to manage the customers that come from digital advertising is a good time to get started on paid ads. Paid ads can be a really nice way to get some customers right off the bat, but also it's a good way to hold up a mirror to your website and your operations to identify where there may be some opportunities to improve the site, opportunities to improve some of your workflow, etc. So, usually as soon as you feel good about your website and your ability to handle it, it's a good time on paid ads.
Let's maybe drill into that just a bit. Like, what does feel good about your website mean? Obviously, before you start taking a bullhorn and announcing to the world and driving people towards your website, you need to be able to handle that traffic and convert that marketing into sales. What are some key points to check off of, is my website ready to handle the traffic?
In an ideal world, if you've gotten a fair amount of traffic from non-paid advertising, so that could be via direct traffic to your website, referral traffic, organic traffic. If you have a meaningful amount of that sort of non-paid traffic and can understand if your site is going to convert well, then that's a good sign that you are ready for paid advertising. Obviously, a lot of those non-paid sources can take a while to build up and get a meaningful number of clicks and people onto the website from. So not everyone has the luxury of being able to do that. If you're someone that is, launching a website, launching your business, and then fairly shortly thereafter going to dive into ads to get those initial eyeballs onto the site and people browsing your business, big things are visibly pleasing, like good aesthetics, good images, high quality content on the website, and then making sure that you have all the tracking in place that you need to measure the success of your advertising or your organic efforts and see where your customers are coming from.
Okay, makes sense, because we ultimately probably want to cut down on any leakage, right? When we funnel people towards the site, we want them to engage and not bounce. Are there things that you help out with in that regard? Like, do you do website reviews, or is that kind of somebody else's court?
I offer a very well-educated and experienced layman's perspective on websites. I don't build websites. I have other companies that I refer to who are the real experts, but I've seen enough websites and enough landing pages that if I start working with a client, I usually can give a few quick wins or meaningful feedback.
Got it. So you can provide some guidance there. When a pet care business says, hey, I want to do some online advertising, I think I have a really great website, I just want to convert more leads, is there any guidance on choosing between Google, Meta, or other platforms? Like, what makes sense to a business?
I think this is honestly like the biggest decision, that a pet care business has when they decide that they want to do online advertising is what your choice of channel is going to be. As a general rule, if if a client's business is a good fit for Google search, which most pet care businesses are, that's usually where I suggest starting out. By good fit, I mean a lot of people are searching on Google for, whether it's dog boarding, grooming. There's a lot of people that search on Google, and it's not particularly expensive to get those clicks on Google. The great advantage that Google has is that you're getting an ad in front of someone at the exact moment that they're searching for a service. So there's no way from other platforms to really beat that level of intent behind someone at that exact moment that they're searching. So for this reason, I usually suggest to clients that they start with Google. Meta can be a great channel for conversions. And by that, I mean turning clicks into customers. The issue with Meta is that you're putting ads in front of people based on their interests, their behaviors, their demographics. So you can do some great things with targeting people that may have interest in pet care. However, you're not necessarily getting an ad in front of them at the moment that they are looking for a pet care service. For that reason, I usually suggest start with Google, max out on Google, and then move towards Meta as far as direct response advertising goes.
So ideally, you kind of want to meet the customers where they are. And when that customer's searching Google, they are actively looking for your services potentially. And you want to be smack in the middle of that search. In the sense of Meta, you're more likely targeting people who are lookalike clients, right? They look like a client that I've served in the past.
Exactly. So they may look like a client they've served in the past. They may see your ad and then they're not looking for a place to have their dog spend the night now, but maybe in 2 weeks they'll remember your business.
It's like nurture marketing almost.
Yeah, it's more of like a discovery platform. Like I have clients in the pet care business that use Meta if they're launching a new location, which is a great use of it, where, they can target a new launch video to a certain city or a certain set of zip codes, and it does a great job of generating awareness about the new location. So it's a great use for that, but for marketing that is intended to immediately drive a booking or an appointment, Google is usually the first place I suggest clients go.
So I'm a pet care business. I'm decided that Google's my first route of marketing. What does that typical onboarding process look like when you start working with a new client?
The first thing we want to do is just get to know the business owner and come to understand their business in a broad sense. This could be how long they've been in business, what their target demographics are, what areas they typically serve, what their advantages are over their competitors, things like that. Usually the first phone call we have. After that, we typically dive more into the black and white business metrics. So this could be us finding out how much revenue does the average appointment or booking generate? What is your profit margin on each new customer? If they've been running ads in the past, what was the conversion rate? If not, what's the conversion rate from other traffic you get? We're trying to take all of this business data and merge it to figure out what is the cost per acquiring a new customer that's going to be profitable for them. And that does a lot to inform the strategy that we're going to use, putting their campaigns together. After that, we go through campaign planning. For Google, this means doing a lot of keyword research. This is essentially looking at potential keywords in the areas that they want to serve and seeing how many people are searching for them, what if they would expect it to cost, and coming up with what an ideal budget would be to start off. For Meta, this would be researching audiences. If you're a pet care business in Chicago, how many people are in the dog care interest audience in the Chicago area? What kind of budget will we need to reach those people? At this point, we also figure out what are the first variables that we want to test with our marketing. Usually in pet care, this would start off with either wanting to test out multiple ad texts or creatives, so meaning images or videos, or testing a few different landing pages to see what converts better.
Now, do you come up with those creatives and create that for them?
So generally speaking, with Meta, the image or the video is on the client to provide. And then we do like ad text and then go back and forth with the client to put that in their brand's voice, make sure that it's what they're looking for. So after we have a campaign plan put in place, we present this to the client, get sign off from them that the creatives look like what they want them to, that we're putting forth the brand image that they're looking for. We also will generate conversion events and get all the tracking implemented that we need. And again, this is hugely important so that a client can understand which of the conversions, meaning bookings, appointments, et cetera, are coming from Google, what's coming from Facebook, and it gives us what we need to figure out how to optimize and continue to get better results as we get more data.
Let me stop you right there. What do you consider to be a conversion?
Generally with like if it's like pet hospitality, ideally if we have the correct attribution in place, this would be a booking at the facility. If it's grooming, this could be a lead form, a phone call. It varies based on the business, but it's usually going to be either a contact or a transaction on the site.
Other e-commerce sites, right, outside of pet care can very easily track conversions because they know exactly how much a sale was made. And let's say I'm selling shoes on Zappos. I know exactly it was $100 pair of Reeboks, and you can attribute that to whatever campaign that was coming in, right? And so I think this is where Goose has definitely leaned into this, what we call marketing attribution, because previously, before you were able to report out on exactly how much of a sale was made through a campaign, how do you accurately track conversion of a marketing campaign?
The marketing attribution that we've gotten from Goose to implement on our pet care client campaigns has been a huge step forward for us. Previously, it was a pretty manual process, and it was admittedly fairly labor intensive for the client. As I'm sure you know, a lot of pet care business owners have a lot of things going on and probably don't want to be digging deep into their analytics dashboard and pulling some number to send over to me. So what we were doing is we would run an ad, someone would click on it, go to their site. They would then click on an outbound link to take them to a booking site where they would, again, then hopefully book, a daycare appointment or an overnight, or we would know how many people clicked on that outbound link. The client could then provide me with how many of the people that clicked on that outbound link made a booking, and we could back into an ROI for the channel level. So we could say, oh, Google has gotten a 5x return on ad spend, which is basically for every dollar we've put in an ad spend, the client has made $5 in return, which is okay at a high level to have that, but we don't have any idea of which campaigns in Google are driving the return on ad spend, what keywords, which ad creatives in Facebook. It's very incomplete data that we were working with. Whereas now, you gave the analogy of e-commerce. I mean, it's pretty close to like working with an e-commerce client where we can tell precisely which keywords are driving the bookings and which creatives are driving bookings, which cities they're getting good results from, all that. So it's really given us the building blocks we need to take the optimization to the next level.
That's really awesome, because now I think pet care facilities can invest marketing dollars with extreme confidence because they know exactly what it's producing. And it's a very clear picture that we're able to paint as far as what is, and you dropped one of the terms, return on ad spend, ROAS. What is a good ROAS metric?
It varies a lot by location. That being said, usually a ROAS in the $6 to $10 range is a good place to target for pet care.
And as far as like conversions, as far as people clicking into ads, what of the number of clicks that get into an ad that convert to a sale, is there a certain metric that you look for there? Does it depend on the business, the location, the region?
It depends a bit on the region and how much competition there is in that area. So, generally speaking, if you are in a major city where people have lots and lots of pet boarding facilities to choose from, you probably will not convert as well as if you're, the only player in town, somewhere a little smaller. That said, usually with like a well set up and well targeted Google Ads campaign, we'll usually see between 3 and 5% of the clicks turn into bookings.
That's about the number that I was expecting. So click through, ROAS, what other KPIs or metrics are important to you or that you really focus in on? And what are perhaps metrics that are misleading, that maybe the pet care facility are looking at the wrong metrics? What do you tend to focus on?
The ROAS is absolutely the most important metric. Like every client report we send, every call we do, that is like what we lead with. The metrics that really drive ROAS, in which are the areas that I feel like we can make changes to, tweak or improve. Conversion rate, which as you mentioned, is a huge one. This is incredibly indicative of how high quality the traffic that you're sending to the site is and of how good your website is. Average revenue per booking is huge. That is, if you're determining any sort of ROI metric, the amount of revenue that you're generating has a huge effect on that. On that, click-through rate is a really important one that we look at. This is usually a really good measure of how compelling your creative or your ad text is. Cost per click is very important. On Google, they have a metric called quality score. In a short explanation would be it's a measure of how relevant your ads and your website are to the keyword that you're targeting. And if you optimize for this, you can get lower cost per click. So obviously, if you're holding your ad spend the same, if you have $1,000 a month budget and you optimize your quality score to get lower costs per click, and you go from getting 500 clicks a month to 700 clicks a month for the same $1,000, you can get a much higher return on ad spend. And then the last one on Google that we'll look at that we keep a really close eye on is search impression share. And this is a measure of all the times the people in the area that you're targeting search for a given keyword, what percentage of the time does your ad show up in those searches? And this is really helpful for figuring out if there are missed opportunities, either via where your ad is showing in the rankings or if you have a budget that is being exhausted on a daily basis.
I'm sure it can vary quite a bit depending on the business, the size, number of locations, perhaps where you're located, the competition. But is there a general starting point for a budget? If somebody let's say I want to advertise for my own facility, the Kennel at Arbor Lane in Indianapolis, Indiana. I have no idea what my starting budget should be. Is there an effective starting point to start at, or is it different for everybody?
It's going to vary for everybody. And if you're working with, someone that is a digital advertising professional, they'll be able to give you customized budget based on your area and how you are searching. That said, for a single location facility, I've generally seen that between like $1,000 and $1,500 a month is a good starting point for ad spend, where you should be able to be very competitive on your core keywords. And that should be enough to get you several hundred clicks in the first month. And that's usually enough clicks to understand, are we going to convert well? Is this channel going to be profitable for us as it's set up? Or is there something that we need to go back to the drawing board on?
I think that's a doable, starting budget for most facilities, I would imagine.
And really quickly, I just wanted to revisit the misleading metrics question. Yes, I mentioned that ROAS is absolutely where we lead every client call. The flip side of ROAS is that I think that it can be a little bit misleading if the proper context is not applied to it. So what I mean by that is that right now, what Google is doing is they're pushing a lot of advertisers towards these very highly automated campaigns, where if you're a pet care business owner and you're looking at a report, you'll see, oh, Google is getting this amazing ROAS. It must be doing well. What the campaigns are doing, though, is that they're driving a lot of revenue on what's called brand search ads. And a brand search ad is that someone searches for a business by name and then they click on that ad, as opposed to clicking on the business's organic link or going directly to their website. So as you can imagine, if someone is searching for a business by name, they're very likely to book an appointment with them, book a night.
Yeah, I've been guilty of doing that myself, right? It's right there at the top. You just click into it.
Exactly. But as you could imagine, if you had not clicked on the ad, you probably would have found your way to them anyway. So these are what I would call not incremental revenue, because you've essentially kind of just pulled from your organic bucket or your direct bucket and given it to the Google Ads budget. However, these campaigns are often like a burrito of grand search conversions surrounded by a lot of lower quality clicks that aren't converting and aren't leading to new customers for the business. So because of this, I think it's important, because Google's pushing this, a lot of agencies are pushing this. I think it's just important to work with someone or for a business owner to educate themselves on the nuances of different campaign types so that you understand, yes, Google is generating revenue for me, but is it generating revenue that would have happened anyway, or is it generating revenue that is actually incremental to my business?
Yeah, is it just displacing organic revenue that I would have normally received? So you can differentiate between those two buckets.
When we set up campaigns, we silo any brand traffic completely off to the side from non-brand search. And the non-brand search would be dog boarding facility, Indianapolis, dog hotel, Indianapolis. And then we report to the clients on, here is your return on ad spend from brand. And that's usually super, super high, which is great. But then here's your return on ad spend from non-brand. The non-brand is generally going to be incremental revenue, whereas brand is not.
Again, maybe putting the hat on of I'm brand new to marketing. I kind of want to introduce it to my facility. I obviously have no idea where to start. I would reach out to an agency, someone like yourself. What can I expect as far as agency fees? You know, if my budget's $1,500 a month on Google AdWords, what can I expect as far as agency fees with that?
A very common pricing model for digital agencies is a percentage of ad spend with a monthly minimum. So most agencies that I've come across charge between 10 and 20% of a client's monthly ad spend. Most will have a monthly minimum that is usually in the $500 to $700 a month range. If you're brand new and you're starting at that $1,000 a month budget, on a percentage base, it's a little steep to pay $500. But as you scale, hopefully you scale your business and you scale your campaigns and are spending more and more, then you're paying, usually a pretty modest percentage.
And look, it's worth every single penny because I have looked into doing Google Ads myself. It gets quite complicated quite quickly. And so if you don't know exactly what you're up to or what you're doing, you're going to be overwhelmed and discouraged pretty quickly out of the gate.
If you work with an agency, that hopefully has lots and lots of experience, they have likely learned about what in your industry works and what doesn't, and have kind of taken some of the bumps and bruises along the way with past clients. And what this allows is that when you launch, you can really speed through the learning phase and the ramping up phase and kind of get right to showing on high quality traffic that is hopefully going to convert into customers. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to clients in the pet care industry where they either tried to self-manage Google Ads for a month or two, or they hired a cut rate agency. They didn't get the results they were looking for. They couldn't stomach losing money for 1 or 2 months. And they just decide, Google Ads doesn't work for me. And not necessarily the case. I think that if you're working with an agency that has the industry knowledge and experience, you should be able to find success.
Regarding that timeline, what expectations do you try to set to kind of establish a routine, a rhythm, and a return? Is it like, hey, stick with this for 6 months, a year? Like, what is the guidance there?
Usually in pet care, we're starting to see profitability within 2 months. I'm very big on under promise, over deliver. So in early calls, when we're setting expectations, we'll say, this is something we need to stick with for 3 to 6 months. Usually we're starting to see profitability within a month or two, though. As I mentioned, pet care is what I would call like a very, very good fit for Google. What a facility can make from an average customer is far, far greater than what it usually costs to get a single click on Google. Like if you want an example of something that I would not consider a great fit for Google, in roofing, for example, there's so much competition for those keywords that a lot of these businesses are paying $70, $80, $90 per click. And then, if someone just needs their gutters cleaned or like a few shingles fixed, they might make $300 on that job. Like you can see how if you're paying for a few clicks at $80 a click, it's very, very hard to be profitable. Whereas in pet care, a lot of these clicks are $2, $3. In a boarding facility, a single customer might be a few $100s.
That makes me think of something else. You just brought something to mind. Do you also take into account LTV of the customer? Because roofing, let's say I do get a new roof, I'm probably not going to need another one for another 20 years or whatever the case may be. But when you capture a online lead that turns into a reservation, there is a high frequency of repeat buying that goes on there.
When we report to clients, we report on the revenue that occurred from the booking or the appointment that occurred after the ad click. So this is just like the like a one-time return on ad spend. That said, we do educate clients and work with them to figure out what the lifetime return on ad spend is. A lot of clients, if they have like a CRM set up properly, they can figure out which of their customers came from ads when they initially found the business, and then track how many repeat transactions they had with that customer. And we'll work with them maybe every 6 months or a year to figure out what the lifetime return on ad spend is.
Got it. And that's where shameless plug coming. That's where Goose can come into play and offer that type of reporting probably to the customers and share exactly what the LTV, lifetime value of a certain customer is at any given time. Well, Wyatt, I certainly appreciate your time today. This has been super insightful for myself. I am definitely not a marketing guru, and I'm sure this will be helpful for many others that listen. So how can folks get a hold of you?
Yeah, my website is mossdigitalstrategies.com. There, if you're interested in working together, there's a lead form you can fill out. On LinkedIn, Wyatt Moss. If you just want to email me directly, my email is wyatt@mossdigitalstrategies.com.
Wonderful. Really appreciate your time today and look forward to chatting again in the future.
Cool.
Take care.
Great, Chris. Thanks for the time.